On a recent trip to the beautiful state of Washington, I caught up with X-Files producer and director R.W. Goodwin, as well as his assorted dogs, donkey and horse. When the X-Files moved from Vancouver to Los Angeles, why did you choose to stay behind?
It was a family thing more than anything else. You know, everybody thinks that we moved up here to the Northwest because of the X-Files, but we didn't. We bought this house in 1989, and we had always planned to move here in '93, which we did. That was when our middle kid, Jesse, was finishing his elementary school in LA, and luckily the X-Files happened, and it was just amazing and great. Mm-hmm. But when they were leaving, Jesse was about to go into his senior year in high school, and you know, I just couldn't take him down there, and I didn't want to go down there. I knew he'd be going off to college. I wanted to get as much time as I could with him that last year. So, you know, it worked out really good. I mean, I would say that during that year, Jesse and I probably had 20 or 25 minutes together, you know. Like he really wanted to see me.
Are you completely out of television? And if so, do you miss it?
I'm completely out of television, yeah, and truthfully, I don't miss it. I don't miss it because, you know, I was kind of the old man on the X-Files, you know. They all called me Uncle Bob and everything, and I'd done a lot of television and a lot before that, and I actually did several years of television after the X-Files, but the truth of the matter is that anything after the X-Files is going to be pretty dull, you know. They're not very exciting. I mean, the X-Files was such an experience, you know, the show itself, but more importantly, all those great people. Mm-hmm. You know, you talk about Chris and Jim and Glenn and Darren and Vince and Frank and Howard and, you know, and of course David and Jillian. I mean, and everybody. It was just a magical kind of group, and it was also an incredible experience. And so after that, it seemed like everything I did, it was sort of like repeating what I'd done many times before, and it just wasn't. So I was very happy to get out of it, you know. We live in this beautiful place up here in this beautiful part of the world, and I'd never been here. I was always working, you know, so I'd say it's time to live a little bit.
What are your memories of working with Frank Spotnitz when he was a writer, producer, and director?
Well, you know, the thing about Frank and I, because he was always based pretty much in LA, and I was based in Vancouver, because I was kind of the guy in charge up there, and he was so busy down there. He would get up, you know, on occasion, many occasions really, but our experience was just more about like hanging out together. And the only time I actually worked with Frank was when I wrote Demons in the Fourth Season, and I went down there, and in the room I, you know, sort of worked out, we beat out the storyline and stuff with Frank and Vince and John Shivan and stuff like that. And it was great because he's got a very fertile mind, you know, and he was really helpful. I was impressed. You know, I really like Frank, and he's done a lot of good work.
Tell us about Alien Trespass.
A friend of mine here, a guy named Jim Swift, he had this idea to do a movie, and he'd been trying for years. He wrote the story, but he couldn't get a script. He had different writers, and then it didn't work out. So he just asked me if I would help out. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, I want to do a 1957 sci-fi movie. And I said, well, Jim, they've already done that. You know? It's like, and he said, yeah, I know, but I think we could do one more. And I said, okay. So he and I sat down, and we ran probably three of the best of the 50s movies. War of the Worlds, and It Came from Outer Space, and The Day the Earth Stood Still. And, you know, I had seen those when I was a young kid and on TV and everything after, and they were scary when I was little, and they are still pretty scary, you know. I mean, like War of the Worlds has some really scary stuff in it, but they were made in the 50s, and the style was way different. It was a different acting style. They had obviously much, you know, more primitive special effects. I mean, in War of the Worlds, you can actually see the wires holding up the spaceships, you know. I mean, I never saw it as a kid, but I saw it as a grown-up. And so I was laughing my head off. You know, these things were kind of inadvertently funny. And I said to Jim, I said, so is that what you want to do? He said, yeah. And I said, but Jim, you know, they're going to laugh at it. He said, yeah. And I said, okay, I'm in. You know, I mean, that would be fun. And that's what we did. I helped him with the script, and the next thing we knew, Eric McCormack read it, and Robert Patrick, and Dan Lauria, and Jenny Baird. And the next thing I knew, I was directing and producing it. I don't even know what happened. It just like, it just hit me, but it was really fun. It was the most fun I've ever had. And most of the other people, you know, that worked on it said the same thing, you know, because it was the Jim and Bob show. And it was a fun show. You know, we had a real ball doing it, and I'd say we laughed more than was legal, I think, you know, in the process.
We couldn't help but notice during the press tour of Alien Trespass that you had a different look.
Yes, I was the Yul Brynner look, or yeah, I had, you know, it's not, life is not always completely fun, although mostly. I had cancer twice. I first had cancer. It was a nasty kind of lymphoma called large B-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which can basically kill you within weeks. And we got really lucky the first time we caught it early enough. I mean, it was spread all over, but it was early enough that I was able to get rid of it with the chemo. And it was gone, and then 4 years later it suddenly came back. And so I did the chemo again, and it was gone again. But the doctors said to me that because it's such a nasty kind of cancer, I had to do a stem cell transplant. That was not fun. That kind of knocked me out for a couple of years. But, you know, that's life, you know.
And you're still cancer-free today?
Oh, God, yes. Yeah, I'm perfect. Can't you see that? No, I've been great. And I have to tell you, one of the great things about it, if there's anything great, was my wife. I mean, Sheila was just the most amazing caregiver you could ever meet, you know, and it was just great. She was just fantastic. So it was, you know, a bad experience, but you know what? I came out the other side.
You did.
Yeah.
We hear this fall you're teaching a college course. Tell us about it.
Yeah, one of the reasons we like living up here, there's this wonderful university, Western Washington University. And Sheila and I are on the board of the College of Fine and Performing Arts, and the dean of the college, Dan Guyette, has sort of been after me to teach a course. And I said to him, when he first asked, I said, well, what would you want me to teach? And he said, how about you can teach the students how they can get into the entertainment business? And I said, Dan, I have no idea how they're going to get it. So I said, I wouldn't want to mislead them. You know, I wouldn't want to mislead the students about it. But then I thought about it. And you know what? Most people in entertainment business are in it because they have a passion. And, you know, there's not much else they really would want to do. And, you know, you don't want to discourage people with dreams and stuff like that. So what I figured was I would teach a course that would sort of give them a better idea about what the business is and what it requires. When I started, my very first job, I worked in the mailroom at CBS, and I got on this production, on this local show, which was great, and then I got on a network. It took me 5 years or so of getting jobs before I even knew what all the jobs were in the business and what I really wanted to do. So this course I'm teaching is called How to Make a Movie from A to Z, and the point being to start from the idea and a script and casting and prep and production and post-production. I'm going to be the producer and director, and the students are going to do all the other jobs. So, and we'll produce a little 10-minute film over the course of this one quarter. We're going to do this in the winter quarter this year, so January. And by the way, it's called extended education. So non-students can go if they want to, which, you know, who knows. If they do, the more the merrier. You know, we're going to have a couple of hundred seats in there. But the point being, at the end of the day, they will have participated and know what every single job, from directing to writing to acting to accounting to transportation, props, special effects, whatever it is. So if they really want to get into the business after this, because I'm also going to be very honest about the business and how difficult it is. If they really want to get into it, then they'll maybe know which job they want, so they get a better start. You know, they don't have to go try and get jobs for 5 years to find out what they need to do. Western Washington University, the January session.
And it's open to everybody, students and non-students.
Anybody wants to come, they can come.
It's very important.
Yeah.
Tell us about Fanny Friends.
I was producing forever, you know. I mean, I produced many shows before the X-Files. And on the show before the X-Files, Life Goes On, which was a wonderful show. I did the last 2 seasons of it. And I started directing on that one. Well, as soon as I started directing, for better or for worse, they kept wanting me to direct a lot. And on the very first show I directed on Life Goes On, I had, you know, I was sitting, it's the director's chair. That's the problem. Director's chairs is what's wrong with directing. Because, you know, they're the most uncomfortable chairs on the planet, and you have to sit on them for 14 hours a day, you know. And it's especially bad if you have the big H, and I was cursed with the big H. So it was gruesome. It was a horrible experience, and I tried everything. I bought all these hard foam donut things, and nothing worked. So when I started X-Files and I was really directing a lot, I just started working with my set decorators who went to a sewing company, and I did drawings, and I developed this cushion, and it worked great. You know, I find it took me a while to get there, but once I got it, it worked great. Everybody called it Bob's Donut. That was their name for it. It doesn't look like a donut. It just looks like a regular cushion. And then everybody started coming out of the woodwork, and they kept borrowing these things, and they never gave them back, you know. And so that I never thought about it much, because I only really did them for myself, but I would make extras and give them out and all. So we looked around, found out half the people in the world have a problem, you know, and there's nothing there. So we made these things and we're marketing them, you know. Website is fannyfriends.com. If you go on and look at some of the testimonials, like I'm saving the world one backside at a time, you know. We were doing Heron Folk, which was the first time we ever went on a distant location. And it was up in Kamloops, and I was getting on the plane to go up to Scout, I think it was. And so I get on the plane, and I put my cushion down on the seat, and there's this old English lady sitting there next to me, and she goes, "Oh, you have your own cushion." And I said, "Well, it's actually a donut. I have hemorrhoids." And she goes, "You don't have to be so honest." Anyway, we've done a bunch of really, I think, pretty funny commercials, you know, that we're going to be putting out in January with people who have delicate derrieres who have to sit in their job, and one of them's Queen Elizabeth.
Being queen is so tedious, especially when you have to sit on antique thrones with a delicate derriere. I always use Fanny Friends Deluxe. They're so discreet. Or not. No cushion in the world like it. Bunny, have them bring round the Maserati.
Sit too much? Tailbone problems? Hemorrhoid? Try something that really works. Fanny Friends Deluxe at fannyfriends.com.
So that's the new venture. There we go. We'll see.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for
See
coming.
you next time.
Okay, great. Thank you.